Welcome to Hassle-Free RE, the show where we share tips, tricks, and stories from the short-term rental industry and business alike. Hosted by Dave Menapace and Will Van Wickler. They'll help you navigate the exciting and ever-evolving world of short-term rentals. Whether you're a seasoned host or just starting out, they've got something just for you. In each episode, they'll bring you insider insights, expert advice, and real-life stories from hosts and industry professionals who have been through it all. They'll cover everything from maximizing your rental income and profits to creating unforgettable guest experiences and handling unexpected day-to-day challenges with ease. Are you ready to discover the secrets to running a successful short-term rental business without the hassle? Then let's get started. This is Hassle-Free RE.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Hassle-Free RE. I'm Dave Menapace, president of the 5-Star Co-host, joined here by my man, Will Van Wickler, New England's #1 short-term rental and residential real estate agent. How we doing, my man?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Fantastic. And, I'm excited to talk about this week's episode and the topic specifically. It's vacation rental design trends that might not necessarily be boosting your ROI. And I think it's an interesting topic because there's a heck of a lot of focus on it. There's tons of businesses that have popped up over the last few years, from short-term rental design companies to short-term rental design installation companies to consulting companies and all sorts of things. But is the juice really worth the squeeze? What do you think on all that?
Yeah, there's a lot of business coming in to this commercialization of short-term rentals. Remember just a couple of years ago, it was hard to find a designer that would do New England, for example. And now it's well, everybody will do New England. I've seen great design. I've seen poor design. I've seen what works. I've seen what doesn't. I'm not a designer. I think I know what usually works and looks good and what it should cost. This is going to be a good episode. It's going to be quick, but there's a lot of good insights in here. Where should we start?
Well, I think we should talk about the biggest whiff or the biggest miss. And I think a lot of times that's when you have all these really cool amenities, but there's been oversight on the actual guest needs. As an example, the amount of times we've walked into an amazingly decorated home with tons of cool amenities, and there's still just one or two sets of sheets and towels, completely empty cabinets, not enough silverware, no iron or ironing board, totally forgetting hair dryers in each of the bathrooms. Like all of the basics are just totally missed. And, with that, the other piece is a lot of owners, in my experience, don't spend the time at their home once the design's been implemented. So they have no idea functionally or operationally if their house meets the mark and is actually ready for guests. It's been an observation. I'd love to get your take on it.
And I think a lot of it comes down to understanding a clear scope of work up front, which I've learned on the contracting side of scope of work's number one, but a lot of these designers will make things look pretty. But I just dealt with a text last night of the buyer asking where the mirrors are. And it's, well, those are not in the spec sheet. Well, your designer didn't pick them out, right? So I'm not at fault. They're not at fault, but that was a miss, right?
Totally.
Mirrors in bathrooms, towel, these are all things that talk about scope of work that just totally get missed. And the only way you can really figure these things out, unless you're seasoned, is by going to the house. And I see this with out-of-state flippers or builders that are hands-off of very simple things get missed when you're not on site or you don't have somebody on site. It doesn't always have to be you, but you need to get the project manager involved, and every project needs a manager.
Totally. And another one that just came to mind, and this happens sometimes in Maine specifically, where a lot of houses are perched up on mountains. Everything is done through a well service. Houses that don't produce enough water quick enough. So for example, pretty much every house up in Maine that we manage has a hot tub. Well, at times that hot tub needs to be emptied and refilled. And if the well can't replenish quick enough, you might fill that hot tub, but then if the guests come that afternoon or evening, they might not be able to take a shower or flush a toilet later in that day until the next morning. And that's not something that's on the designer. It's just it's a nuance that I've seen specific in certain markets, and one of the things we check for before launching a house, because we've gotten burned in the past. And again, a very basic guest need is going to be water at the home.
And also that comes into like probably the next point of just like slowing down. Like I know everyone's like launch, launch, launch. And I'll say like, just because you ran out of water doesn't mean you have a bad well. It's just a
Right.
well's not designed to run 400 or 500 gallons through it in 3 hours, right? So it's like, well, of course you're going to run out of water. So if you slow it down, you stay at the house. These are things that you can mitigate just by spending a little bit more time. One extra payment can save you from losing thousands of dollars in a situation where you have to mitigate an issue like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's move this to a more fun topic. Let's talk about amenities specifically at homes, because there is absolutely this big push for getting amenities into homes. And let's face it, a house is more fun when it's got more bells and whistles, right? Whether it's a movie theater, a hot tub, one of those cool swim spas, a sauna sometimes. I mean, there's a million. We see the pickleball courts in a lot of the different markets. Super cool stuff. But there's a hidden challenge to these things. And so they all require maintenance of some kind. So I don't know about you, but we've run into the golf simulators. They're they look good for a photo. However, if they don't have internet connection because it's in a detached garage, boom, it's pretty much out of service and not going to be able to be used. Or if something breaks on it, having people available to service these things is a massive challenge, especially the more rural you get, like up in the mountains. What's your take on that and some of these over amenities that you see at some of the houses?
Yeah, people they try to spread their money out. This is my observation instead of just investing in quality. And I know it's really tempting. We've even had mainly tubs on the podcast of like buying a
Yeah.
super cheap hot tub from Costco versus spending 3 times that on something quality. Well, I've seen a lot of these like online saunas, the heaters are going bad and they can't find the parts. And also, who the heck is going to service this electric sauna heater, right?
Right.
The companies that sell them locally aren't going to because you didn't buy it from them. So it's this, issue that it's like, whose fault is it? Who's going to fix it? When I know we don't think we're going to have problems with this stuff, but that's why I would rather work with a local company, maybe pay a little bit more. Like I buy appliances for
Totally.
all of my projects at the local appliance company because they service it,
Yes.
right? So like that right there, I'm solving my maintenance issue up front, where I have somebody to maintain it. So in a economy and world where labor is hard to find, maybe consider investing with the local business instead of buying from an online website, which we all do sometimes. There's great ways to do it. Same with arcade machines, right? It's really hard to service these piece of junk, arcade
Yeah.
machines that everybody buys off eBay. Good luck ever
Right.
getting that service. So that's my kind of hot take on that.
Well, and to your point, if something stops working and it was available in the marketing, so on Airbnb, if it's in the photos and it's selected as an amenity and a guest goes to stay at your home, and that amenity is not available, Airbnb, without even a discussion, has reimbursed guests 30 to 50% of their total trip stay because an amenity is not working. Now, some of the houses we rent out cost $3,000 to $4,000 a night. That ends up being, we just got a booking for next summer that's 2 weeks long. It's $41,000 for a 2 week stay. It's up in Saco. Amazing house.
Wow.
Thankfully, it's not over amenitied. So it's pretty easy to keep it running. People want to be at the beach and they want to stay in this gorgeous 6 bedroom, multi-million-dollar home. However, we've had $10,000 refrigerators go bust at one of our houses, and that creates a really unique situation. In that case, it was cheaper for the owner to go buy a $2,000 refrigerator and put it into the entryway, just so we wouldn't have to potentially give back almost $15,000 for the guest stay. Um, and of course we coordinated all that and got it taken care of on their behalf as the manager of the home. But it's important to understand that, like, if these things go south, it's not always an easy fix. And so it's really important. You made an amazing point. It's important to understand exactly what the market calls for and what you're putting in. It is cool to be a unicorn property and be ahead of the game on certain amenities. But to your point, my suggestion is, whenever you can, buy local and get warranties from those local companies so they can come out and service these things, and they can do so in a timely manner, because otherwise, you could end up being liable for giving a ton of money back to a guest.
And I'll say, just to add on to that real quick, is like, yeah, maybe that hot tub on Costco has 5 stars. Well, you got to remember that's residential use, using it once a week. Maybe they're in
Yeah.
Arizona, right? When you go
Right.
to these different climates that are getting used and abused frequently, right? Like these hot tubs in Maine, you're getting probably 300 days of use throughout the year
Right.
of it running all the
Right.
time in these crazy climates. So it's like, you need to really factor that into, like, yeah, maybe this worked for my buddy out west, but understand where you're buying and understand who's using it. And if it's a high occupancy product, you need to invest in it. Same things like bunk beds, like we've talked about on other episodes, of like
Yeah.
spending more money, because like the ones off Amazon, they're really designed for like your kids to use, not, 250-pound adults. Right. So like
Right.
a lot of factors like that come down for maintenance and just investing in the right product up front.
Oh, it's such a good point. Now, and so, like, kind of playing off that too, not every amenity is going to make you more money. So for example, in Cape Cod, right? Um, Knowing that generally people are booking over the summer, there's not a ton of people booking in the off season unless you have a hot tub. My houses in hot tub that in the Cape that have hot tubs do get bookings pretty much every single weekend around the year, which is super cool. Kind of a hidden nugget there for anyone that wants to make an extra 40 or 50 grand a year on their Cape house.
Crazy.
However, no use in putting a sauna there. Like, there's not even any data, but there's no guest desire for a sauna at a house in Cape Cod. But it's a massive missed opportunity if you don't have a fire pit, because people, especially in the summer at night, want to sit around a fire. And you can put those fire pits in the front yard, which is kind of cool because it creates opportunities to congregate with other neighbors and stuff like that. So knowing your market is important, and if you're trying to learn, talking to experienced real estate agents like yourself, property managers like me, we can give you this information and it can be super, super helpful.
I'll throw out a couple right here that are just different between markets, like an EV charger. If you're buying at Acadia National Park, Ellsworth, awesome amenity, right? Because guests are commuting in, they might not have access to it, and the closest EV charger is pretty far away. Versus Old Orchard Beach or Bethel, they both have supercharger networks for Tesla owners very close by. So even going
Sure.
market to market, like you said, amenities, a sauna might be great in the mountains, not great at Cape. Somebody brought up the sauna idea at Acadia National Park yesterday. I'm like, there's just no data yet, and the guests are really coming in the summer, not the winter. So it's really
Right.
thinking about, like, same with pickleball, what might do great in other
Right.
markets. Like, we don't have a big pickleball craze in the mountains, and we have such a short summer. So it's really understanding
Right.
it, not just going off the hype.
Oh, such a great point. Now, what are some simple wins? Maybe some design elements that can boost bookings that seem to, uh, go work well across any market. What are some things you've seen?
I've seen one of the largest impacts people can make, and this goes from like selling your house to even renting it short term, is linens and paint, right? Like, as
Yeah.
simple as that. A lot of times you can refresh a property low cost by upgrading the linens, having new photos done, freshening up the color scheme, things like that. So that's what I see, like a high level. What about you, being in it day to day, 40 properties in the portfolio?
Yeah, I find that, like, the bedroom murals, usually it's a form of
Huge.
sticky wallpaper that is really market specific for what you're putting in there. And it just automatically gives folks an escape. Like, it's really, really amazing. The other two upgrades design things that I've seen that really go a long way, if you can fit it in the room, king beds instead of queen beds. I've seen that really help boost nightly rate and occupancy. And if you can fit it, replacing twin beds with full beds. Just giving
Huge.
people a little bit more space goes a really long way. I understand it can't fit in every, single bedroom, but they do even make bunk beds that are with full beds instead of twin. And it's amazing. Those houses, they always capture more 5-star reviews. Always. So if you have the mural and then you have the slightly larger beds, it goes a super, super long way.
I can see why. It's all about guests and figuring out what they want at the end of the day, right?
Totally. Totally. Now, let me ask you this as we wrap up this topic, Will. It costs a lot of money to outfit a house, and you do it right. I mean, we've seen some people put $500,000 into a home. What does that say? Generally speaking, how does that translate, if at all, into a resale value? And does that change at all if it's 3 years, 5 years, or 10 years down the road, if any?
I've been waiting to talk about this, so thank you for asking this as we go out. A lot of times it doesn't equate to anything, right? There's perceived value of what the owner thinks it's worth, and then there's like actual value. And an appraiser who values residential real estate, which the banks utilize, if there's an appraisal in the transaction, which I'd say 99% of deals there are, they need to validate what the house is worth. And if you take a house that was a vacant new construction and then you put hot tubs and saunas in and you furnish it, it's still worth what it's worth, right? It was worth what you paid 3 months ago. And that's the downside of short-term rental real estate versus, new construction or fix and flipping or long-term rentals with value add, is there's not a huge equity component to the investment, right? What might make you another $100,000 a year won't add $100,000 in value. So I'm always very upfront with my clients, and I have to remind them frequently that you need to be in this for the long haul, because you are betting on home price appreciation catching up to what you've invested in the property. And you do have a lot of work to catch up on. If you've invested $100,000 on a $700,000 property, I don't have my calculator in front of me, but do the math. How long is that going to take you to catch that in appreciation? And we always hope for larger appreciation years, but you've got to remember, you're putting $100,000 in, maybe you get a tenth of that back in potential equity. If you think you might sell or short-term rental's not for you, buy a value add property, do the work, and force the appreciation. You cannot force the appreciation with furniture and great design, no matter what real estate agent tells you. I'm going to be honest with you.
Right.
Adding a pool, you might get 50% of that back when you go to sell.
Right.
So really keep that in mind, and bring your real estate agent in and ask them about the upgrades and what they can actually get back.
I love that. And I was just going to ask about the pools, and so you hit the nail on the head there. Well, I think this was really great. This, again, there's two things at play. There's cash flow and there's appreciation. And depending on what your tax strategy is, there's forced depreciation, right? So all these things are really important. They're worth a conversation. They're worth you, as always, doing your due diligence on, and also understanding, if you're going to be making investments into amenities, always just think about the maintenance side of it, as well as like the functional use side. And one thing we didn't touch on, but I'll keep it brief, is that generally speaking, if you need more than like 3 to 4 bullet points to explain to a guest how to use something, it's probably too complicated. So, that's maybe where you put a 100-inch TV against a wall rather than a projector, because then you have multiple moving parts that can break if you have a projector, things like that. So it's just always important to understand and think about it from the guest perspective. They're not used to using these amenities. So make it stupid, make it simple, and that makes it enjoyable for the guest.
Great tip and great episode, man. If somebody wants to reach you, how are we going to do that?
Yeah, just head on to davemenapace.com, or you can find me on Instagram, Dave_Menapace. Shoot me an email, dave@davemenapace.com. Be happy to connect with you. And Will, somebody wants to buy some real estate or maybe contract you to build them something, want to talk to you, how can they get in touch with you?
Yep, go to willvanwickler.com. That's just my name. You can book a call right on there, and we can jump on a call and see how I can help.
Boom. I love it, buddy. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.
And that's a wrap for this episode of Hassle-Free RE. We hope you found today's tips and stories as inspiring and useful as I did. Remember, success in the short-term rental industry is all about learning, adapting, and staying one step ahead. If you enjoyed the show, please take a moment to leave us a review or comment on your favorite platform. Your feedback helps us improve and reach more listeners like you. Plus, we'd love to hear your thoughts and any topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And follow us at Hassle-Free RE on social media for more tips and updates. Thanks for tuning in. And until next time, keep it hassle-free.